All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the West Shore Senior Parent Night presentation. Unfortunately, as you know, we weren't able to do this presentation in person this year. So we are very sorry for that. We were looking forward to seeing you all, but this is a very exciting time for you and your senior. And so we still wanted to make sure you had a way to get this information. So we'll be doing the presentation virtually, which for some people might even work out better. My name is Carolyn Horst, and I am the counselor for students with last names A through G.
My name is Kara Lujan, and I'm the school counselor for students H to O.
And I am Kim Strauk, and I am the school counselor for students with last names P through Z. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start off the presentation with information on finally graduating from West Shore. So for the course and credit requirements, last February, when your children were juniors, they received a transcript in their English classes to review, to make sure that they had gotten all of their courses entered correctly and that they were on the right path for entering their senior year. We as counselors then used that transcript to create the graduation credit checks and to make sure that they were entering into their required courses for senior year. Coming this spring, when they are a few months from graduating, we will again do a big credit check to make sure that everything from the fall transferred over properly and that any graduation requirements are on track. If your child is in a graduation requirement course, including but not limited to the senior English class, which would either be English for Honors or AP Lit, a math class, depending on where your child is in the math sequence, some form of a math class, and then finally their senior project course. And their senior project course can come from their senior seminar or the AP Capstone or AP Capstone Science Research. When your child finally graduates, there will be a final transcript review, and then those will be sent off to colleges and universities, the final transcript. And at graduation practice, Mrs. Kellner will be giving your children a form to fill out that is their final graduation transcript request form. We will have those on file, and just so you kind of have an idea, the district doesn't release the seniors and finalize their transcripts until usually the end of June. This past year, it was June 23rd. So when a lot of those universities are asking for final transcripts, please just be patient with us and know that we can't send the final transcript until the district finalizes everything on our end. And if you do have any universities kind of hounding you and wondering where the transcript is, you can direct those questions to guidance or to Mrs. Kellner over the summer, and we'll get those out as soon as the district releases you. In terms of the Diploma of Distinction, as you know, graduating from a school of choice, either being here at West Shore or Edgewood, students are required to do non-optional things that are a little bit in addition to other university or other high schools. So the first one is the Bright Futures hours. We require the 100 hours. And I know it's been a little weird the past couple of years with COVID. West Shore has, for the past 2 years, waived the requirement for the volunteer hours. However, Bright Futures still requires the hours for their scholarship. For the highest level of Bright Futures, that amount is 100 hours. And some of you as seniors, you might already have those 100 hours logged. Beautiful. That will be, great for you in terms of your for your Bright Futures and getting the money in enough time. However, if you don't have 100 hours logged yet, it is important that you try to get those hours in before we leave for winter break, because that will aid in the process of when we actually apply for the Bright Futures scholarship, and it won't hold up your money if and if you don't have those hours in, it could hold up that money for you. Now, if there's something you do in the spring that you're going to get your hours for, it's okay, but just get those hours in as soon as you possibly can. Leadership and scholarship. Leadership documentation forms can be found in guidance. You fill those out and return that to your homeroom teacher. Most of our students do qualify for Bright Futures, but in the event that they do not, we require some form of scholarship due by March 25th, and that can be given to, reported to Mr. Drake or your child's counselor. Senior project is obviously one of those big requirements from the Diploma of Distinction. The senior project class, that's where your child is working on that throughout the school year. There will probably be instances where they will have to work outside of school, but for the most part, all of the deadlines and all of the collaborations are done in the classroom. Now, the college selection process. This is something where if you haven't started narrowing down the options as of yet, that's something that you should be doing soon. And there is a great resource off to the side where we obviously know you can't click on these links in the presentation, but you can, copy the website and take a look at the resource. You can type in any kind of major and it lets you know what of the state universities offer that major for you. So that can help narrow your choices. Also, you need to be aware of the GPA and the test scores that the universities you are applying to, what they require. Also, the location and the size. It's very important that you kind of figure out if you want to be at a larger school where, there's tens of thousands of people, or you want to be more in a smaller school where, you kind of like a West Shore environment where kind of everybody knows your name. Along those same lines, it's also very important to make those personal visits. Hopefully, the schools that you're wanting to attend will be allowing students on campus for actual campus visits. That's something that you'll need to check out with each individual university. But that's super important. You'll get a feeling when you step on a campus, whether it's, you'll definitely know if it's wrong. You'll get that feeling, trust those feelings. But the really cool thing is that you'll know when you're on the right campus, when you step foot on that campus that you're meant to be on. But you don't know that unless you make those visits. So it's very important that that happens for you. And also current students at the school, family, friends, alumni that you can reach out to and get a real life view of what's going on at the school. Because, you'll be spending at least the next 4 years at that place. So you want to make it as personal and make it feel like it's home for you. You should be calling or emailing the admissions offices of the universities with specific questions. Your counselors, we have limited knowledge on a lot of the universities, but if you're asking specific questions, we'll be happy to try and help you, but it's often important to reach out to the specific universities for those questions. And if you just don't know what you want to do at this point, that is totally okay. We would rather you invest your time at Eastern Florida State College or another community college to figure out what it is you want to do and not waste your money, not waste your time. And then hopefully after being there for a couple of years, you can kind of hone in on what it is you really want to do. When you're actually applying to colleges, that should be something that if you haven't done so already, you should start doing. We mentioned this to your seniors as we were in their English classrooms a couple weeks ago. There are various sites, websites for college applications. Common App is one that many universities are starting to go toward. SendEDU and then Coalition are the main online sites for applications. We would recommend that you check on those websites first. If you can't find your school, some schools just have their own applications on the school's websites. This is important. Most schools are going to require electronic submission and self-reporting of your grades. So that means that the transcript we gave you in your English classroom, and we asked you to check through that and make sure everything was accurate, you're going to be using that to self-report. The huge thing is just making sure that you take the time to be accurate. Whether you make a mistake in your favor and give yourself a better grade, or make a mistake and give yourself a worse grade. If you're not taking the time to do it accurately, the university is going to see that and probably not accept you based on that. So really make sure that you are reporting correctly. It's so important that you print things off and make copies of everything that you send, because things happen, especially when things are done electronically. Something could get lost. So any kind of confirmation email that you receive, any kind of, submission that they got it, please make sure you keep copies of that. In the event that they say you miss a deadline and you say, no, I didn't, you just have that proof. Speaking of proof, proofread, and then have someone else proofread. You can never have too many eyes on an application, on an essay, because it's what the university is, their first impression of you. And if you are if you're taking the time and everything looks great on paper, that just gets you to that next step. But you won't get to that next step if you've got errors. Flag any questions or concerns that you have in an application. We've had several students come in already, and we're happy to sit down with you and answer those questions for you. And like I said, just make copies of everything that you've submitted. Calendars are very important, not only for applications to universities, but the different components of the application, in terms of financial aid, in terms of any fees. Housing is super important as well. So make sure that you're aware of all those deadlines. Calendars are extremely important. We know as parents and educators and professionals, we know the importance of calendars. Hopefully seniors are starting to realize the importance of calendars, just so you don't forget anything, because this time of senior year can be very stressful and lots of things going on, and we just don't want you to miss out on anything. When it comes to letters of recommendation, we recommend that students have a resume, and that resume, it says 1 page, but we just don't want it to run on forever. But we need that resume to showcase the student outside of their academics. So give us a picture of what you do that we might not know just by looking at your transcript. Please make sure that you give at least 3 weeks notice to a counselor or a teacher in terms of writing your letter, and let your teachers know when you need that letter of recommendation by, so they're not scrambling. Some of our teachers do have a quota in terms of how many letters that they will write. So if you want a certain teacher, make sure you get that request in soon. When you write your admissions essays, it's very important that that's what you make personal. Show them who you really are. They're, these people are experts in what students are writing, and they can see through someone being disingenuous. So show them who you are, because ultimately they're choosing you based on who you portray yourself to be. And, if that's not only you fitting into their school, but their campus life and their community fitting you, and you want to make sure that both of those are genuine. So take your essays very seriously, have somebody proofread them, edit them, and just make sure that you're truly showcasing who you are. When you are requesting transcripts, anything that comes through Common App, Send EDU, Coalition, those transcripts, the counselors, we upload those to those websites. So there's no need to have Mrs. Kellner send those off for you. But if there's anything outside of those online platforms, just come to Mrs. Kellner in the guidance office, and she'll be able to assist you in getting those transcripts sent. follow up on your application status, just to make sure that everything is sent properly. And that's why the importance of, making copies, but just check on the status, and, especially as those deadlines come up. In terms of applying early, we suggest in the guidance office, and Mr. Fleming will, give you October 1st as his deadline as well. We would like to have all of our students pretty much complete with their applications by October 1st. If you don't, it's not a huge deal, but the different types of admissions are often, dependent upon early submission. So rolling admissions, just real quickly, the universities accept students all throughout the school year. Now, obviously they have a certain number, so it's always better to apply early, and then you are, getting one of, maybe 10,000 spots, as opposed to waiting until March when, there's only a few hundred spots left. Early action, schools use this as a non-binding application type, where they let you know early what their decision is for you being admitted to their school, but you do not have to actually attend that university. It's not a binding decision. Early decision, if you apply to a school early decision and you get in, that is a binding, basically a contract with you and the school. And you have to click on, understanding, acknowledgements, and things like that when you're applying to those schools, early decision or early action. So you can ask us at any time for clarification on any of that. Biggest thing, don't procrastinate. You've got 1,000 things going on your senior year, and you want to be able to have fun too. So just keep up on all those deadlines and have fun with it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Strauch. This is Ms. Horst again, and at this point in the presentation, I'm going to talk to you about the Bright Futures Scholarship Program. This is our probably like the most common scholarship that our students receive at West Shore. We work very hard to make sure that you're prepared to earn at least the lower level of the scholarship, but obviously our goal is to help prepare you and get you to that highest level possible. Sorry, I skipped a slide there somehow. But so I'm going to talk to you about the Florida Academic Scholars Award and the Florida Medallion Scholars Award, which are the two different levels. All right, so there is an online application for the Bright Futures Scholarship. The application process itself doesn't actually open or begin until January. And it has to be completed before the date of graduation. So this is one of those things where I know Ms. Strauch just kind of talked to you all about making sure you're managing your time and getting as much done early as possible, but you can kind of sit back and relax on this one because we don't want you to do this early. We want you to wait to do this in January. The counselors will be visiting the English classes again, and we will bring laptops into those classes and go through the application process with your child. So please do not do this on your own early. Just in years past, we found that this actually leads to more trouble down the road, because then when the counselors do go into the classroom, there are technology issues, we can't get them logged in, and it's a very smooth process when we're able to go through and answer their questions as they go through the application and ensure that it's submitted correctly and submitted. And if not, then we can handle it right then and there. So that's kind of some good news. You don't have to rush to get that done. All right, so a little bit about Bright Futures and how it relates to FAFSA. FAFSA is the federal financial aid program. So it is not required by Bright Futures that the student completes the FAFSA. However, the guidance department highly recommends that everybody complete the FAFSA, just because even if you don't think that you will qualify for any federal aid, most universities are going to require that you have an application on file in order to receive any of their scholarships or grants that they provide. So it's just a good idea to have that done, and who knows, you might be surprised and find that you may in fact qualify. So I won't talk too much about the FAFSA itself, because that's in the portion that Ms. Lujan is going to cover with you. But I did want to mention that this website down here, obviously you can't click on it right now, but if you have more questions about the financial aid awards, about what I'm going to show you on the next couple of slides, you can click on that later and get more information on that. Okay, so this chart here just kind of breaks down the difference between the two levels of the Bright Futures Scholarship. So the FAS is the highest level. That earns you 100% of your tuition, whereas the FMS is the second tier of that, and that can earn you 75%, which is still really, really significant. The coursework itself is, you know, as your child's counselor, we ensure that they are getting those courses that they need all throughout high school. So the major things that we want to talk about that are differentiating between the two levels is the high school weighted Bright Futures GPA, the college entrance exams, which are either the SAT or the ACT, and then the service hours. So with that GPA, you'll notice for the highest level, it requires a 3.5, and the lower level is a 3.0. Now the weighted GPA, that's not going to be the same GPA that you see on your child's transcripts or on their report cards. That's calculated by Bright Futures using only the core subjects. And those are English, math, science, and social studies, and their world languages. So we can kind of help get an estimate to you if you're concerned about, you know, if your child is going to meet either one of those GPAs, but that's how that works. Now for the college entrance exams, our biggest piece of advice to you is to test and retest, and don't be, you know, disheartened if the first time you test and you don't get the scores that would qualify you for the highest level, or even for the FMS level, because honestly, you have many, many opportunities, and a lot of the universities and Bright Futures will allow you to super score, which means you can combine your best combination of scores for the different areas of the test to get the highest score possible. So it's really important. Testing is offered throughout the school year, and for Bright Futures, you can continue to test even after you graduate, if those tests are offered in the summer. So we've done lots of research, and it shows that even just 10 to 15 minutes of practice on Khan Academy, when you link that with your College Board account, can really help improve your score by as much as 100 points. So that's very valuable, because when you're talking about the difference between 100% tuition being covered and 75% tuition being covered, sometimes when you think percent, like, oh, it's only 25%, but when you're talking actual dollars of tuition over the span of 4 years, it can really be very significant. So we encourage you to, you know, do whatever you can to help prepare you for those tests. And then if you don't get the score that you want the first time, not to be discouraged, but to use more, you know, more specific study resources to help get you the score that you need to get. All right, and then finally, the service hours component. at West Shore, part of our requirements for Diploma of Distinction are that you complete 25 hours of community service each school year to return. And the reason why that's in place is because we don't want our seniors to be super stressed out their senior year trying to do college applications, their senior project, their work for their classes, and trying to balance their social life and have 100 hours of community service that they're trying to squeeze in there. So we've incorporated that into our requirements for the Diploma of Distinction so that it's more manageable. So I know with COVID, that, you know, kind of has changed things for us a little bit, because your child may or may not have chosen to not do community service hours last year, possibly the year before, because West Shore waived that requirement to come back. But Bright Futures is still requiring those community service hours. So on the transcript, it does show whether or not your child has the 100 hours completed, and it shows how many hours they have done. So if you're not sure, I would definitely recommend, you know, to check that, or you can just stop by or email your guidance counselor, and we'll be happy to tell you what we have logged for you. You can still turn in hours. So if you're holding on to any old log sheets that you have from the summer or even prior, please bring them in, because we really want to make sure that if you have the hours, that we get them logged, because the sooner that's showing up in the system when Bright Futures starts doing their checks, if the sooner you have those hours done, the sooner that money can become available for you. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. And this just kind of briefly summarizes the difference between the two award amounts. Obviously, I just said the Florida Academic Scholars receive an award equal to 100% tuition and applicable fees. So that those applicable fees include activity fees, health fees, athletic fees, financial aid fees, campus access, transportation fees. Oftentimes we're seeing now, because of the shift to virtual, technology fees. So that is all included. In addition to this, a nice thing is that the Florida Academic Scholars also receive an additional amount of $300 per semester for their textbooks and other educational expenses. So that might be like a laptop or something. All right, and then with the Florida Medallion Scholars, again, those students receive an award to cover 75% of tuition and applicable fees. So those applicable fees that we just talked about on the previous slide are still the same. The real difference here is that you don't see that additional $300 for textbooks and other educational expenses. And again, like I just want to make sure, like, because oftentimes this is the part that's the most relevant to the parents, right? Is the dollar amount that we're looking at putting forth for our child's education. So please, please, please make sure you're talking to your child about their test scores, and how close they are. If they're having a hard time with one test, maybe they've done the SAT once or twice and their scores really aren't improving, try the ACT. Because again, this 25% difference can really, really add up over the course of the child's education. So with that, I think I'm gonna pass the baton to Ms. Lujan.
Thank you so much, Ms. Horst. I'm going to be covering the 4 categories of financial aid. The first one is the FAFSA, and Ms. Horst touched on this slightly, so I'm going to go more in depth for you. So the FAFSA is the free application for student aid, and the window to complete this is October 1st to June 30th. However, I highly recommend that you begin the application as soon as possible. Even if you or your student have no intention of using financial aid, please take the time to complete the FAFSA. as Ms. Horst mentioned, it really is the gateway to many other sources of funding, not only loans, but scholarships through the different colleges. You and your student will receive a FAFSA award package, which may include loans, grants, and/or work study. Student and parent loans are financial awards that must be paid back. Payments typically begin 6 months after graduation, and you don't have to accept the loans even if they're given to you, so you could decline those. Another form of aid that's given in the form of financial award is a grant, and those are awards you don't have to pay back. And then work study program is another option, and that's when your student is matched with an on-campus job where their paycheck is directly applied to the cost of tuition. So that's usually a fun way to get to know people on the campus in different departments, and earns the money to pay down that student debt. This is a link that will provide you with information that you need to complete your FAFSA. It's going to give you some tips. It's also going to let you know what you need to have prepared ahead of time, so when you sit down to do your FAFSA, you're ready to go. It's going to give you a link to create an FSA account, which will provide you with a PIN to complete your FAFSA. Again, I highly recommend submitting your FAFSA as soon as you can, because the money is distributed on a first come, first served basis. Okay, the next source of financial aid is through the state of Florida. And the OSFA is the Office of Student Financial Aid Assistance, and it houses information on Florida state funded scholarships and grants. Now, as Ms. Horst mentioned, we're going to have your students apply for this when we come to visit their classrooms in January. And at that time, we're going to give them all the instructions they need to complete it. So please do not create an account ahead of time. When we meet with them, we're going to give them all the information they need, have them complete it on the spot, and then they're going to have the access to all the state aid. The third source of financial assistance is directly from the college itself. So as long as you've completed a FAFSA, your student can apply for scholarships and aid offered by the college. What they're going to do is they're going to go on the financial aid page of the specific college, and they'll have details on the different sources and requirements to be eligible for the school given financial aid. Once your student is accepted to a particular school, then your student will receive a financial aid package. This is going to include their FAFSA award money, as well as different college scholarships that are awarded to your student. But this package isn't set in stone, especially for your private schools. So if you get a package that does not cover the cost of what you need for your student to attend that school, I highly recommend reaching out to the financial aid officer to discuss any flexibility with that award package. Oftentimes, when students start to decline admission, there becomes more funds available, and they may be able to allocate them to your particular student. The fourth source of financial aid is other, and that includes community, employment, and various other sources of aid. The first one, loan institutions, are companies like Sallie Mae and Freddie Mac that offer low interest loans for school. I suggest using this as a last resort though. Finding good scholarships does take some work, but it's worth the effort. I recommend using the FastWeb or Going Merry scholarship clearinghouses. And the reason that we at West Shore like that is because your student creates an account and completes a profile, and it matches scholarships with your student based on various factors like sports, activities, majors, and other things your student may be interested in. And oftentimes it will send them a weekly email summary of scholarships that they may be eligible for. Also, check with your employer and local community agencies like Kiwanis, Elks, car dealerships, and libraries to see what scholarships they may offer. The West Shore website, under the guidance tab, is also going to have a list of scholarships available, as well as the guidance bulletin board. And then the Brevard Schools Foundation, which comes out in February, are district scholarships that are available for your student to apply for. We thank you so much for your time and attention. And if you have any additional questions, or your student does, we ask that they please reach out to their individual counselor. Thank you very much.